Dignity does not come with a job title. And the Constitution does not bend for seniority. And sometimes justice is not dramatic. Sometimes it's just a calm, steady refusal to pay nearly 2 million shillings to someone who thought power should come without consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Katiba na Chai. Now, every workplace has its hierarchies. Some are written into contracts, but others are enforced quietly, through fear and familiarity, when you're the small guy in the group. Now, this story begins with a man who did not walk into an office as just another employee. This man was a clinical officer. He was trained and he was trusted. And he was senior enough that his authority did not need explaining. He had gravitas when he worked in that office. And when he spoke, people listened. When he entered into a room, he carried weight. And people beneath him in the workplace understood instinctively that refusing him was never a neutral act. Now, one of those people who refused him was a cleaner. She did not share his title. She did not share his security. She was just a cleaner. She worked around him and not with him. And the court record makes something clear early on. This was not one single bad moment. There was a pattern. The complainant testified that the claimant used to send her nude photographs on WhatsApp and then delete them. Used to. Not once, not accidentally, but on 8th July 2024, the situation escalated. And the judgment records it this way. She narrated that on 8th July 2024, when undertaking her normal duties, the claimant approached her and uttered, "I asked you for sex and you declined." After that, he approached her, opened his trousers zipper, and pulled out his you-know-what. She stated that she pushed him away, injuring him slightly, after which he stopped. Now, at the same time, imagine she was 5 months pregnant, and they were alone in the office. So alone, at work, pregnant, and subordinate. She pushed him away. She reported the incident to their supervisor. The supervisor escalated it to human resources. And here is where the detail that matters. After she reported him, the harassment stopped, which tells you his behavior was not uncontrollable. It was controlled. It continued because it had been tolerated. It stopped because he was confronted. But the employer acted. Weather Care Solutions issued a show cause letter to him. They then conducted their own internal investigations and they convened a disciplinary hearing. And on 6th August 2024, that clinical officer was dismissed. That should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. Because instead of accepting the dismissal, the former clinical officer took Wazesha to court. Not to deny the conduct, not to say it never happened. He went to court to say that dismissal was unfair. And this is where the story shifts from disturbing to absurd. He asked the court to order that he should be paid 1.7 million shillings by his former employer. 1,780,750 shillings to be exact. Now, this was not symbolic money. This was not I'm just here to clear my name money. This was money for notice pay, service pay, house allowance, leave days, and 12 months compensation. All those, they don't say, for unfair termination. So, in other words, after repeatedly harassing a cleaner who worked under him, he was then asking the court to say, yes, the exposure happened, but please pay me my money. And that number matters because when someone asks for nearly 2 million shillings, they're not confused. They are convinced. They are convinced that the law exists to cushion them from consequences. He has audacity. He's convinced that the power should still pay dividends to him even after misconduct. So his complaint to the court was not really about innocence. It was about comfort. He said the process was unfair. He was denied a fair hearing, and that he was denied representation during the hearing, and that he was denied access to evidence, and that he was also denied the chance to cross-examine the person who accused him. So in short, he was arguing that the real injustice was not what he did. Sawa. But it was how seriously you guys took it. This is like someone setting a house on fire. and then suing the fire brigade guys for breaking their door when they came to put out the fire. So the respondent told a different story. That's the employee. They said that a complaint had been made, investigations had been conducted, evidence of repeated misconduct was found. And so that clinical officer was given a chance to respond, and the dismissal followed due process. So they explained why the complainant was not subjected to cross-examination. The reason was to avoid victimization, given the claimant's senior position. And that phrase matters, senior position, because the judge understood exactly what that meant. You see, in the judgment, the court says, and I quote, "The failure to reveal the identity of the complainant was not unreasonable in an open and democratic society, in light of the acquisitions made and the power dynamics between TOO and RE, the parties involved." So power dynamics, vibes, not gossip, power. Okay. When the judge turned to the substance of the allegation, I find that and hold that the termination of the claimant's employment was based on findings confirming multiple allegations of sexual harassment, including the unwanted sexual harassment by TOO to RE. Then sending explicit photo materials and the use of sexually suggestive language, as well as the display of TOOs to the complainant. Guys, those are multiple allegations, repeated advances. There was a pattern. But the claimant argued that there was no CCTV footage, there was no criminal case, there was no police report. And the judge responds firmly, "Nor does the absence of criminal processes deprive the complainant of her agency as a woman who, by virtue of her gender and position, deserved respect, dignity, and honor from the claimant." Agency, dignity, position. The court also dealt with the argument that she had accepted snacks and money from him. So the fact that she had accepted snacks from TOO does not make her complicit in any way in the misconduct by the claimant. Then the judge explained how the behavior operated. "The conduct of the claimant," this is a quote from the judge, "fits in the classic mold of sexual harassment, as he chose the time the victim was cleaning the office when no one else was around to harass her." It's classic mold. And because the behavior persisted, despite her request for him to stop, the court concluded the claimant was undeserving of the employer's grace or the leniency of this court. The claim was dismissed with cost. Now, this is where the comedy lands. Carefully. Because what we are laughing at is not the incident. It's not the victim. No. It's not the courage it took to report. What I found funny was the audacity it takes to do all this. You know when you walk into a court asking for 1.7 million? This is not a misunderstanding. This is an entitlement with a spreadsheet. Because the claimant's legal position boiled down to this. Sawa, there were repeated allegations of sexual allegations. Jakata, nimeakuziwa mara kadhaa. But we talk about my compensation. He didn't realize this was not labor law. This was an invoice for audacity. But now, let's slow down. Because this case is not just about one man's misconduct. It's about what power does to perspective. When someone has lived so long without being told no, accountability starts to feel like persecution. Boundaries feel like bias. And the consequences feel unfair. The cleaner, she did nothing wrong. She didn't even invite it. She did not exaggerate it. And she did not owe silence to what happened. She reported. And the law listened. Justice this time did not shout. It did not perform outrage. It simply traced the pattern, named the power, and refused to protect the entitlement. And that matters because dignity does not come with a job title. And the Constitution does not bend for seniority. And sometimes justice is not dramatic. Sometimes it's just a calm, steady refusal to pay nearly 2 million shillings to someone who thought power should come without consequences. and that's why this case matters.